The Trumpet Daily is presented by Stephen Flurry. The program analyzes world news and history from a distinct perspective and compares current events to prophecies found in the Bible. The program also offers free educational publications, including the Trumpet News Magazine and books and booklets. The Trumpet Daily is produced at the Philadelphia Church of God's home campus in Edmond, Oklahoma, and its sister campus in Edstone, England. More information is available at thetrumpet.com.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
Today's world news, what it means, where it's taking us.
I bring you the one and only possible message of world peace.
This is a message of hope, tremendous hope. And he said unto me, you must prophesy again.
The Trumpet Daily program begins right now.
11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and our country was laughed at from all over the world, but they're not laughing anymore. Over the past 11 months, we have brought more positive change to Washington than any administration in American history. There's never been anything like it. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East. And it's not done yet, but boy, are we making progress. Nobody can believe what's going on. And no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected, and our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before. To each and every one of you, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.
Was able to squeeze in a reference to God right there at the tail end of the address last night. Lots and lots of confidence, lots of optimism. Of course, we're heading into 2026, the nation's 250th birthday. There's a lot to celebrate, and judging by even some economic numbers this morning, it could be an economic resurgence next year as well. We'll talk about that and a lot more on today's show. You're listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. We appreciate you joining us for the program. You can get to the live video stream at thetrumpet.com or at the Rumble channel, rumble.com/Trumpet Daily. Send us an email if you like, td@thetrumpet.com. Today, I want to focus on, we're at the end of this calendar year. We've got all of the montages. Of course, we've got our mega montage planned for next week. But we're seeing the year that was, and what I'd like to set our minds on are some of the things that could distract the United States of America next year. As you've heard, if you've watched this week on the Trumpet Daily, there are some massively significant developments in Europe right now. I mean, you could say what's happening in Germany, in the heart of Europe, with the rebuilding of the German war machine. That may be the most significant development in world events since the end of World War II. And yet, speaking of distractions, look at the way that development's being treated now. Forget about next year when we get into the birthday bash and all these, maybe some economic improvements, Donald Trump's legacy, the midterm elections. Right now, we're not giving proper attention or focus to what's happening in Europe. Certainly not. As I said yesterday, there are a lot of stories, and they're all echoing the same, talking points. It's as if European elites, we were talking about this after the show yesterday. It's as if the leaders in Europe understand well, and of course, given what's happened in the last few years with COVID, with Russia, European elites have to know that narrative is everything. And so they're the ones out there with these talking points. They're leading the way. Putin, Trump. We need a German war machine. Germany's got to reluctantly take the lead. You know, they're traditionally pacifist. We're treating World War II as if it's ancient history. Even if it was ancient, you still want to draw lessons from it. But listen, it's less than a century ago. Less than a century. And we've gone to sleep. We are blind to what's happening in this world. Jesus said, watch and pray always, so that we might be worthy enough to escape what's coming. We've got to escape it. It's that bad. Read about it. Luke 21, Matthew 24. We'll talk about some of that today as we draw this theme together or pull it together. What is it that will distract America in 2026? Well, I think if you were watching President Trump's address last night, you get a pretty good idea of the distractions that are going to take our eye off the ball. It's going to take our eye off what's happening in Europe. You hear all of the statements. We're respected. The world loves us. Our military is stronger than anyone, and it's not even close. I mean, how is this message received in Europe, in Russia, in China? We act as if bragging about our awesomeness, our power. And then at the same time, you know, saying everybody's just going to love us. Everybody's always going to love America. Is that really true? Well, there may be a higher level of respect for America than there was during the Otto-Pen years, but that's not really saying much. There still is an underlying contempt and hostility for the United States. It's been there since the fall of Germany after World War II. The Nazis went underground. They were preparing for it even before the war ended. And documents that have been declassified bear this out. And we talk about it in our booklets. Germany's conquest of the Balkans. We produced that 25 years ago, I think it was. But anyway, you look at what President Trump spoke on last night, and then just the reaction from conservative media, and then, of course, the good news this morning on economic numbers. Listen to this from a Fox News panel last night, clip 4.
So the bottom line is these charts tell you that the trend lines on energy, on housing cost are going in the right direction. And if we stay with these policies, we do another reconciliation bill, be patient, help is on the way.
There are so many things that we have done that people haven't actually gotten to reap the benefits of yet, and they will next year. When that happens, I think the economy, it's going to be good stuff.
I was telling the team this morning just how shallow the news cycle seems to be at the moment, given what's happening in Europe. And again, it's nice to see a resurgence. It's nice to see more security at the southern border. It's nice to see, you know, this administration confronting things like crime. But then, like my father's written, you look at foreign policy. Domestic policy, there have been some successes, but you look at foreign policy, and that's the big weakness. Look at the coverage, and you see more and more shallow reasoning. Just like in the 1930s, Churchill was alone, sounding the alarm, saying that all these calls for Germany to rearm because they just want equal status? No, they're looking for weapons because they want to fight. They want to expand their empire. That's just been the history. That's been their way. They have a history, as I said on yesterday's show, they have a history of starting wars. So what happens when Germany rebuilds a war machine? A modern one at that. What do you think Germans think when they hear an American president say, our army, our military is so much more powerful than yours? I think that arouses a little bit of a competitive spirit. That's human nature. They're, as you heard from all those clips we played yesterday, they are racing to rebuild. And they keep throwing out the talking points that they know the liberal media will just take it and run with it. No analysis, no digging, no look at history, nothing, none of that. Just, hey, Trump, Putin, Trump, Putin. Just keep repeating it. Listen to Newt Gingrich from Fox News last night, clip 6.
Well, look, I think that we're going to see a choice in 2026 between a Trump boom and the Democrats' gloom. Literally that wide. I think to watch President Trump give a 19-minute disciplined speech that covered that many facts was worthy of Ronald Reagan. That was a good speech. It was an important speech. Someday people will say it was one of the most important speeches of his career because it set the table for the entire debate over the next year and laid out what Biden did to make the country a disaster, what Trump has already done, and where we are going in general and why that's the right direction. I think it's a very, very important speech.
I thought it was very iconoclastic in terms of it shattered the Democratic talking point, affordability. Number one, he laid out that the affordability crisis was caused by them. I don't think anybody can watch that speech and not walk away with that conclusion. Senator Barrasso used the term political shock and awe. And then you just go back a year ago. He's just shy of 11 full months in office. And wow, what a comparison of what we had and the force of nature that the country saw tonight. Your thoughts?
Well, I think that there's no question this is one of the most consequential presidents in American history. We are going to pull away from the rest of the planet because of the sheer dynamic of the American economy.
We are going to pull away from the rest of the planet. Why? Well, the economy. It seems like last time I checked, what are we in the 30-something trillion now? 35, 36 trillion? In debt. Now we've got the checks going out to soldiers and nobody's going to quibble with that. I mean, that's great. Checks for Americans coming in from tariffs next year, perhaps. The big, beautiful bill coming into effect. I mean, the spending. You talk about distractions heading into 2026. What about out of control government spending? That'll certainly be part of the problem as well. It's been that way for years. And it's not getting any better. We're not tightening our belts, preparing for what's ahead, preparing for the new German war machine. The German war machine really makes all of these victories seem so inconsequential. I mean, you're talking about a president, as Gingrich believes, is going to be one of the most consequential presidents. But how big are these victories? And when you compare them or lay them alongside what's happening, Bible prophecies that are being fulfilled. Next year, as I say, is America's 250th birthday. The White House has launched this website celebrating the triumph of the American spirit. Sam was telling me this morning the government's been producing all these great 10-minute historical videos. I mean, looking at America's history, the website looks wonderful. The celebration of America's history, the triumph of the American spirit. Not a lot that's wrong with that, but like Sam also said about those historical videos, I think they're like 10 minutes each. They're corrective. I mean, if your eyes are open, if your ears are open to America that was America 200, 240, 250 years ago. It's inspiring, yes, but it should be corrective. If we had, like my father brings out in the latest Trumpet magazine, the November-December issue, I mean, if there was repentance to go along with this so-called religious revival, then maybe we could look back on those videos. We're hoping to play some of them on this show. But then maybe we could look back at that history and say, what happened to us? What happened to this nation? What happened to all the blessings? So much of it just seems fake and forced today with spending money that we don't have, printing money. And now you see America's enemies. They're rebuilding a a military or a war machine. They're building a war machine to prepare for war. As you heard yesterday, what a difference, by the way. You take Donald Trump's speech last night, the optimism, the positivity. It's never, I mean, it's only going to get better. We're coming into a golden age. Then you've got von der Leyen and all the European leaders saying, we're in a world surrounded by predators, and we've got to be able to defend ourselves. And once Putin's done with Ukraine, he's coming into European nations. And so we need a war machine. It's a different mindset. The Australian authorities, by the way, they just foiled this terrorist attack. Evidently, 7 terrorists heading for the same beach, Bondi Beach, to see if they could kill some more Jews. I mean, that's the world we're living in. For so many in Europe and elsewhere, radical Islam is seen as the greatest threat. And then Putin along with it. But what about Germany's historical roots? What about the ancient Assyrians? What about the war-making nation of Germany? That doesn't seem to cause much concern. Coming back to the Freedom 250, America's birthday next year, again, think the celebration is surely going to go beyond just July 4th. It's probably going to be all summer, maybe all year. And, you know, when America's partying, when America's having the big birthday bash, I think that might be a good opportunity for America's enemies to rebuild a war machine, to prepare for war. This is President Trump on launching Freedom 250, clip 8.
In my campaign for president, I pledged to give America the most spectacular birthday party the world has ever seen for America's 250th anniversary on July 4th next year. Already we've had big celebrations to commemorate the 250th birthdays of the Army, the Navy, and the United States Marines, but there is much, much more to come. We're going to have a good time. Then from June 25th to July 10th of next year, we will host the Great American State Fair on the National Mall, featuring pavilions from all 50 states, highlighting breathtaking innovations and celebrating America's exceptional history and culture. Frankly, you'll never see anything like it, and you'll never see anything like it again. And next spring, we will host a major prayer event on the National Mall to rededicate our country as one nation under God. We're not changing that. But all of this is just a beginning. 2026 will be a celebration of America like no other, honoring our nation in all of its glory.
The language, more and more, it sounds like this with just about everything that's announced. It's never been better. It's just like, it makes me think of Witkoff's peace negotiations, how wildly successful they all are. I mean, even with respect to, you know, we talked a lot about this man and the evil that he saw when he was trying to get back in office and exposing the corruption, and how that's one reason God brought him back, to expose what Obama and all of his henchmen were getting away with. And yet when he talked the other day, I think this was at the Christmas party, he talked about the cheating, the election steal. And because so much of it was couched in, you know, I, me, we won this, we dominated. Well, what about the evildoers? Here again, with respect to repentance, just to come back to this theme and getting back to America's roots and, you know, having a moral revival, not just a fake religion one, but a moral revival. It seems like a good place to start would be, listen, we've got all this evidence. They cheated in 2020, and they are going to be held to account. I mean, yesterday, Dan Bongino, who's about as outspoken as you get on the conservative side, he said he's going to step down from the FBI. Here he's in there for, 9 months? And I mean, it's easy to go in with the tough talk. Yeah, we're going to clean house. I mean, how much longer before Kash Patel steps aside? Or maybe is asked to step aside. They come into the swamp, I mean, and they vow they're going to make some changes. They're going to hold people to account. And then 9 months later, well, I think I'll go back to my podcast. It's just like in the religious sense, it's what Jesus encountered in the first century. Look, why do you call me Lord, Lord, but you don't do what I say? You don't follow through. You don't take action. And it's not like it's just Bongino's fault. I mean, he's going up against the system. It also just shows how broken and corrupt the FBI is. You go in there with all of these sincere intentions to restore law and order, and it's impossible because it's so corrupt. It's so evil. And you could run through, every sector of society. You look at the economy. You look at how it's propped up on fake money. That's what it amounts to. I mean, it's just so much fakery. The golden age is going to be propped up on a lot of phoniness, and we got to be ready for it. It's going to be distracting. We don't want to take our eyes off what's happening in Europe. The signature prophecy that Herbert Armstrong proclaimed for decades. When President Trump was talking about the election steal, as I say, the focus on himself or on, his party, it just comes through in almost every sentence. Listen to clip 12.
They're good at cheating in elections, very good at cheating. They're professionals at cheating because we won in 2016 by a lot. The election was rigged in 2020. We have all the ammunition, all the stuff, and you'll see it come out. It's coming out in truckloads. But then we won again in 2024 with an election that we call too big to rig.
So they've got the ammunition. They've got the evidence. And here again, he's right. I mean, we were saying it as soon as the election ended with all the car honking in 2020. I mean, how ridiculous was that? And using COVID to steal it. Yes, they stole it. But if they stole it, why, that's treason. That is treason. He should have been in office in 2020. But here again, it's just easy to talk. And now the focus, instead of going after the evildoers, now it's, we've got the ammunition, but just so you know, hey, I won in 2016, I won in 2020, I won in 2024. Okay, well, what about the treason? Here's clip 13.
They tried to rig it, but they couldn't do it. It was too big to rig, too many votes, and we won every swing state. We won by millions of votes. We won the popular vote. We won the electoral college. We won something else by a lot. We won something else that was amazing, and that's called districts. So the country is divided up into thousands of districts. We won 2,750 to 525. That's why when you look at a map of the election, the entire map is red other than two little blue stripes along the outer edge. One is California, one's New York. And California's election, New York also, but California more than any other place is so rigged. It's such a rigged election.
Remember after the assassination attempt in Butler, when he was shot in the ear, and he came into that Republican National Convention, and he talked about how that God brought him back, how that God wanted him alive and back in office. And we heard a lot. I mean, we played the montages for you last summer. All the commentators. I mean, God was in every conversation. That Donald Trump seems to be gone. It seems very different 18 months on. What do we say about Jeroboam II? He comes back in. I mean, he comes back in with some strength, with some king-like authority. I mean, to tie it in with Amos 7. But don't let it cause you to drift into a sense of complacency or a false sense of security. God is the one that brought him back. That's full stop. That's bottom line. God did it. No man did it. No party did it. No group of people did it. God did it. And Butler shows that. The head tilt shows that. And we don't want to ever, ever, ever forget it. One more clip from that same speech, clip 14.
We did something that was amazing. We made a comeback, and we got the most Republican votes in the history of elections. We won Texas by more votes than anybody's ever gotten to this. Well, I did number 1, number 2, and 3. All 3 I did in Texas and Alabama and many other states. We won. In many states, we have the all-time record for votes. And it was just a great election. This was a great election.
We made the point, when we went through some of the Sabbath material in Charlie Kirk's new book, which we want to get into that more in the weeks ahead as well. We've gone through it. We've got, it's got some good sections. It's got some that are pretty disappointing. But like I said on the show a week or two ago, what's missing is just giving God the credit. God's the one that made the Sabbath. Charlie Kirk didn't make it. God's the one that brought Trump back in 2024. Donald Trump didn't do it. We didn't do it. God is the one. This is the first and great commandment. Okay, we can get into the fourth commandment a little bit later. Fine. But what about the first commandment? God is a jealous God. He says, I want you to put me first above all else. Everybody, everything, everything. And how many people aim for that level of perfection? God comes first. It's the very first and great commandment. Jesus confirmed it in Matthew 22. Of course, it's in Exodus 20, Deuteronomy 5. It's all through the Bible. We want to give God credit. And then when we look at man and man's systems, there's a lot that needs to be corrected. Sundance says about Bongino's resignation. This announcement does not come as a surprise to those who follow the details of corrupt systems closely and who have watched the scale of the problem surface through the years. In other words, if you take my commentary, summing that up, in other words, it's definitely not of God, the FBI. And I mean, the way we view the FBI, this is the Federal Bureau of Investigations. It's filled with people who have human nature and who are influenced by Satan the devil, the god of this world. And there's so much corruption. What was Patel was saying something like, before he got in there, he was out there, just like Bongino on his podcast, out there saying, we need to close down the FBI in Washington, D.C. at least, and just basically start over. I agree. But who is willing to get in there and to use some Josiah-like courage to just say, you know what, we're going to smash all of these institutions of human beings and start over with God at the foundation? And that's about to happen in the world tomorrow. That's exactly what's going to happen when Christ comes back as King of Kings and Lord of Lords with a rod of iron. Sundance says the problems within the FBI as an institution are systemic. Both Kash Patel and Dan Bongino faced a monumental challenge in trying to get their arms around the scale of the problem within the institution. There is no apple, only worms. It's a swamp. It says you cannot correct problems of great consequence until you admit the core of the problem. No admission was made. The problems remain. He's right. He's exactly right. You've got to get to root causes. This is a corrupt institution through and through. Look at what emerged out of it during the Antiochus years. Brennan and Comey. Well, Brennan wasn't at the FBI, but you get the point. It was very swampy, deep state. Comey, and then you had the news earlier this week, that judge that just wants to do away with all the evidence that shows Comey was guilty of treason. Yeah, you've got some judge that says, let's just bury it. Let Comey walk free. Come on. I mean, I was appointed by Obama. We're all in this together. Dan Bongino's attack vector is his emotional need to be liked and appreciated by his audience. So, you know, the talk is tough going in. Then you get in there and, well, you want to go down in history as a great FBI guy. Well, legacy. Speaking of distractions, I think the Trump legacy could be a big distraction next year. What will America be distracted by in 2026? You know, when you have the rah-rah cheerleading crowd supporting Trump in the summer of 2024, as I say, it's just different than it is when you hear them today, when they're talking about, well, maybe did we jump the gun on golden age? Maybe we're not quite to the golden age, but it's coming. We just got to stay the course. We just got to keep up the same policies. And, you know, cost for gas is going down. We're getting some good numbers here. I mean, at least in the summer of 2024, Donald Trump was engaged in war with Antiochus. And so it was a little easier to get some solid commentary from conservative media about how this man is being attacked in court. He's being attacked literally. He's being, I mean, they want to assassinate him. He's got all these mugshots, all these ridiculous charges. And when he was fighting against that, I mean, that was, in my mind, in many ways, that was a golden age. Because he was fighting against evil. He was demonstrating courage. He was risking his life. Now it just boils down to money, deals, peace derangement. That's another distraction for next year. I mean, that's been a distraction this year. And your Bible says it's going to be talked about non-stop. Diplomats traveling the world saying peace. Yeah, we got peace here. President Trump just said it. In the first time in 3,000 years, we have peace in the Middle East. Do we really, though? Do we really have peace? And look at all the Jew hatred and the split in the MAGA movement. How distracting is that going to be next year? As we go into the midterm elections. Oh, there's another distraction. We got to fight. We've got to maintain our majority. Because if not, Nancy Pelosi says another impeachment's coming. So we've got a political war on our hands. We've got to maintain that majority in the House and in the Senate. And oh yeah, Germany's rebuilding a war machine, but that doesn't matter. They need it. They need equal status. They just are looking for equal status, like Churchill said about the peacemakers in 1932. What about natural disasters, so-called natural disasters? How big of a distraction might that be next year? Here again, Jesus prophesied that they would intensify. Weather curses, weather-related curses. We haven't even had time to squeeze in the montage that's been on the docket about the flooding in the Northwest. It's a little dated now, but here's clip 16.
We begin with the flood emergency in the Pacific Northwest. In the Seattle area, rain totals are approaching 1.5 feet. It's been coming down since Sunday.
And rivers are still rising tonight, some approaching historic levels. The governor of Washington state says as many as 100,000 people could be forced to scramble for safety, and there is still the potential for catastrophic loss of life.
The situation is extremely unpredictable. We understand that many folks have experienced significant floods in the past and that they may feel they can ride it out. The flooding levels we're looking at are potentially historic in nature.
We're monitoring a dangerous situation developing in Washington state. At least 6 rivers are hitting major flood stage this morning. That is the most severe level of flooding, and the water is still rising. Officials have warned of catastrophic flooding, ordering evacuations for up to 100,000 people. Many of those evacuations are along the Skagit River's 100-year floodplain. That river is expected to rise at least 6 feet above its previous record.
Look at the pictures coming in. Catastrophic flooding. Up to 100,000 people have been told to be on alert to evacuate at a moment's notice. Raging waters, entire neighborhoods underwater tonight. Hundreds of National Guard members now activated. Black Hawk helicopters making water rescues. Another chopper was seen saving 2 drivers trapped in the rushing waters, airlifting them to safety.
Tonight, rivers raging out of their banks across the Pacific Northwest. 100,000 residents warned to be ready to evacuate. More than a foot of rain already, and multiple rivers in Washington are in major flood stage.
Jesus said in Matthew 24, "And you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars." This is all right before he returns to this earth. "See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For," verse 7 of Matthew 24, "nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in different places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." It's prophesied. How big of a distraction will these kinds of curses be for parts of America? Maybe all of America. It's not like we're hoping for it. It's prophesied, though. They are disasters. And many people suffer through disasters. And God allows it because he's trying to get our attention. What about you heard a lot of the dialogue last night. It's coming down to the economy. How distracting will the discussion be? You know, the economy, affordability, inflation. It's already in the news cycle nonstop. And what if it doesn't improve as fast as Americans are hoping? This is from Fox Business, clip 5.
Well, I think President has a big task ahead of him, because the truth is that many people aren't feeling a strong economy. I mean, he's getting record low numbers, around 36% approval when it comes to the economy. You're also seeing a lot of everyday Americans, frankly, struggling. Still credit card balances up near all-time highs. So I'd like to see some semblance of compassion for everyday Americans who maybe just simply aren't feeling the exuberance that the president has alluded to over and over again. He's giving himself an A+++. I'm not sure many Americans would feel the same.
He's giving himself an A+, and that's true. That's true. We got to be honest. But whether or not Americans agree is another story. The Telegraph says here, after nearly a year of showing President Trump broadly hugging a 50% approval rating, my firm partners now show the president on a 45% approval rating with 55% disapproving. We need to look at why the change has taken place. If Olaf Scholz, Rishi Sunak, or Joe Biden are reading, the reason will sound familiar. The long tail of inflation. It says 6 in 10 Americans say travel and vacations are unaffordable. Another 59% say their rent and mortgage payments are unaffordable. The American people now believe life is less affordable than it was 6 months ago. It says, am I better off than I was a year ago? For many Americans, the answer is a resounding no. The issue that helped him win last year, affordability, has turned on him. Again, this is what the Telegraph. What you saw right there was Fox Business. And you never know with the polls. It seems like the way the questions are worded on those, it always factors in. But you can be sure, though, that the Jeroboam administration is going to do everything that they can to, inflate the economy, excuse the pun, to try to build it up, even if it's based on something that lacks substance. Because, it's all the more important going into 2026 midterms. Another massive distraction, potentially. The Telegraph says here, there's one potential action being talked about that could be a game changer. Leading into the midterm elections, that is. If the administration rolls out direct deposits into people's bank accounts based on income from the president's tariffs, voters still talk about the stimulus checks they received from Trump back in 2020. He's the one that sent those checks out during COVID. And people, surprise, surprise, Americans loved it. I got $2,000 in the mail. This is awesome. Is more of that coming? The Telegraph says putting money in people's bank accounts may not be the wisest economics, but the politics of it could change the game. I mean, get ready for the politics of it over the next 11 months, because that's what it boils down to. Whether or not it helps the economy in the long run, well, that doesn't matter. What matters is 2026. What matters is maintaining the majority. What matters is going forward with the Trump agenda. Listen to this from President Trump last night, clip 3.
Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military.
And even Van Jones, who hates Trump, couldn't argue with this. He thinks it's a good idea. $1,776 on America's birthday to 1.4 million soldiers. The checks are going to start rolling out from the government, from Uncle Sam, and Americans are going to love it. And Americans are going to be distracted by it. That's our prediction. Meanwhile, Germany's rolling out the funds for weapons. You talk about a different mindset. I mean, here, we talked about it yesterday on the show. Here, the announcement coming out of the Bundestag is that, yeah, we've got all these billions going toward guns and ammunition and things that our soldiers need to defend themselves. I mean, that's what's being, revved up in Germany. Here, it's the handouts to the soldiers, and nobody's going to say that's a bad idea. But they're preparing for war. We're preparing for peace and prosperity with no end. And so how does this play out? German lawmakers approved billions in military expenditure, 52 billion euro. The military outlay has been exempted from rules restricting public debt for the next few years as Germany tries to bring its fighting forces back to complete combat readiness following years of underfunding. Defense Minister Boris Pistorius said, "We are sending a signal to the NATO alliance that our partners. Germany is leading the way. We are fulfilling our obligations to the alliance and accepting our responsibility for security and peace in Europe." And right as this is, almost to the same day, right as this is being announced, you have the big announcement last night. Bonuses for the soldiers, even as Germany's buying weapons. This is not going to end well. And you may still dismiss it or scoff and think that, well, there's no way Germany could ever rebuild a war machine that would be on par with America. Well, they thought that about Germany with respect to Britain and America in 1932 as well. Just let Germany rebuild. And Churchill said, no, don't do that. And he was a voice in the wilderness. Play this. We've had this on the docket as well. This is a food stamp recipient. Again, if everyone's getting a handout, just consider the national mentality. So many are already on the dole. Here's one of them, clip 15.
Local News Live's John Kipper explains. What's the point of food stamps if it's just for real food?
Hannah Moore believes she and other SNAP recipients should be able to go into the grocery store and buy whatever they like.
That's not even cool. Like, why they do that?
Getting next year's soda, candy, prepackaged sweets, prepared desserts, and juice with less than half of natural fruit or vegetable juice in it will not be allowed to be purchased on SNAP cards.
I don't know what Trump is doing. I don't know what's going on.
Missouri's move comes after the Trump administration's push to let states ban junk food products, all a part of their Make America Healthy Again agenda.
In the state's waiver application, they say healthy and nutritious families are more likely to be on the path of self-sufficiency. They add these types of foods lead to chronic diseases such as heart disease and diabetes.
Governor Mike Kehoe says they're looking to refocus SNAP to maximize nutritional health for families.
Thank God I don't got kids, but the people out there that got kids, it's not going to be cool.
How revealing, right? She's on food stamps as part of the Make America Healthy campaign. They want to limit what you're able to buy with food stamps, no junk food. And then there she is saying, well, what about if you have kids? In other words, kids have to have junk food. They just have to. They've got to have a cell phone or a smartphone. It's a must. It's a requirement. You contrast this, by the way, with some of those historic videos that the Trump administration is producing, which are excellent. I mean, they've got conservative commentators on the videos, pointing us back to our forefathers, pointing us back to the start of America in 1776. And what a difference when you look at America today. You see clips like that, and it's almost agonizing. It's so sad how far gone we are, how far removed we are from just the basics of God's truth. And yet, you want to talk about another distraction? Even as you see this moral sickness on display, we're going to get a non-stop reminder over and again next year about how the nation is awakening religiously. We're in the midst of a religious revival. I heard a comment on Real America's Voice this morning. The guy said, it's not just an American revival. The world is returning to Jesus. Did you know this? The world. The whole world is returning to Jesus. Listen to President Trump's message at that Christmas bash the other night, clip 7.
But America has stood tall in part because millions of our citizens have heeded that call, and the faith and service of Christians have been essential parts of America's strength from the very, very beginning. Incredible. We love the Christians. We love all religions. And by the way, religion is coming back to the USA. You see that very strongly.
Now, please get our latest issue of the Trumpet, November, December. America at a Crossroads, where my father talks about religion, the religious revival. It says, in many ways, the affliction caused by previous administrations has been checked. However, the curses on America continue. The hatred, division, and violence that Satan the devil is provoking and fomenting are still boiling. Talks about Charlie Kirk's assassination and some other things happening. Goes through Isaiah 1 about the whole head, from the whole body being sick from head to toe. It says America is at a crossroads. Our next steps will determine where this religious resurgence leads. Will it lead the nation to God? Or will we remain in wretched sins that have caused our massive problems? It says the Bible reveals where we are heading, and Donald Trump is playing a critical role. What does the Bible say about following him and his religion? You need to know. You need to know. It's in there in that latest issue of the Trumpet magazine. I think the January issue has now been posted at the website, but this is November, December. The crossroads that America is at. Listen to Fox News as they talk about the rise of religion. Clip 9.
What we're noticing is a rise in religion in the lives of young people. I've got a lot of reasons here that can tell me why, but why don't you go tell me what you've learned?
I think the heart of it is that God loves people and he wants them to experience his peace. Looking around at the country, we're more polarized than ever, and that's not good, but it does mean that people have to think about what they believe and choose it with more conviction. I was talking to Phoebe just a couple minutes ago as well, and she mentioned also that her generation is particularly one that has experienced loneliness and just a real sense of isolation and fragmentation. And so church offers you a real community, especially at the heart of that friendship with Jesus Christ, but then a real unity with friends surrounding that.
We can show you here this poll from that Gen Z attends the most church services per month, if you can pull that up for everyone to see, right? So that's pretty amazing. And
That's from Fox News. And just to give you one more bit from that, was that 9? Yes, play clip 10.
The number of weekends churchgoers attend church per month, all right? Gen Z is number one here. If you put up the chart, number 3, guys, as compared to millennials, Gen X, boomers, and elders. And I was reading a couple of things here, Father. Not just strictly for the Catholic Church, but maybe for religion overall, that in an unstable and fractured world, the promise of strength and love and community is a pretty good pitch. And that comes from a New York Post piece. New Yorkers turning to the church, number of Catholic converts soaring.
Here's the Trumpet Daily's forecast for 2026. Religious leaders, like the one in this little round table, are going to be talking about how great it is, how great this resurgence is, and it's going to be one massive distraction from what's actually happening in this world. President Trump, for his part, I mean, he's surrounded by religious leaders often. He talks about religion. As we bring out in the trumpet issue, though, he doesn't feel like he needs forgiveness. He feels pretty good about everything he does. And if he makes a mistake, he just corrects course, and that's that. But here is a whole movement rallying around a president that really is not even religious. Eric Erickson, he's a talk show host. He had this to say about these evangelicals that are often seen surrounding President Trump and even laying hands upon them or upon him. This is clip 17.
He is surrounded by a group of people who are professing believers, who are evangelicals. He has a presidential prayer team that prays for him and over him. And I get the sense that they're there to get scraps from the table, and they're not really interested in the president's soul. This makes people mad a lot when I say it, and I'm going to say it again, and I'm just going to say it bluntly, and you can hate me for saying it, but the man needs an intervention in more ways than one, and I don't think when we get there on the last day, we're going to see him the way things are going by his own words and actions, but his words. He's surrounded with a bunch of Christians who are too scared to confront him lovingly. They're too afraid to be blunt with him with a gospel message. They're too afraid to do anything to disrupt their relationship because they're more interested in what they can get from him than the eternal gift of life that they can give to him by giving him a clear presentation of the gospel and helping him develop a relationship with Jesus Christ.
And he's talking about traditional Christianity. They need to speak openly with the president and stop serving themselves. They need to talk to the president about his sins and how he needs the sacrifice of Christ. He needs God's forgiveness. He needs repentance. This is going to be a massive distraction. My father wrote an article back in 2013 where he said, few people recognize the real cause behind the world problems that we see. Even fewer recognize where events are leading and what is about to happen. America in particular is distracted and caught up in other news. Expect more of this as we head into 2026, being distracted by other news. Why are we so into our sports and Hollywood entertainment? Here's more distractions right here. When world-shattering crises are exploding in the Middle East and elsewhere. This was written 12 years ago. I mean, now we've got the German war machine in full motion. Nuclear warfare is near, my father wrote. It is prophesied over 100 times in Bible prophecy, and you can prove it. But will you believe God, or will you wait until it's too late physically to even respond to God? It says later on, meanwhile, Americans pick up the remote, flip channels to see who's playing on ESPN, and they distract themselves. This world is about to explode. Man is about to set the world on fire. Well, if you tune in to this program as we head through 2026, you'll get a pretty heavy dose of the truth of what's coming, of what your Bible prophesies. And of course, together with this show, you should subscribe to the Trumpet magazine. If you don't have a subscription, you can receive a free 1-year subscription by calling our operators today or going to our website, thetrumpet.com. And of course, everything else we have in our literature library is offered without cost or obligation. I took you a minute and a half over, but I'm not going to charge you for those 90 seconds. That is 90 seconds of free broadcasting from the Trumpet Daily. You are listening to Stephen Flurry, and this is the Trumpet Daily. Thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you tomorrow.